Hey guys, it's Mike here, and welcome to another edition of Dragon Ball Super Reviews, in which I'm going to be reviewing Dragon Ball Super Episode 59, and then giving my thoughts throughout the review as to what I thought happened, before summing up whether or not I thought this episode was good, whether it was bad, or whether it is something in the middle. So a lot of stuff happened on this most recent edition of Dragon Ball Super, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So without further ado, let's get right into this review. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all upcoming videos in the future. And to start off this episode, it left off the same place that the previous episode did from 2 weeks ago, in which Goku, Beerus, Whis, and the Kaioshin of Universe 7 went to the Kaioshin realm of Universe 10 so that they could confirm their suspicions about Zamasu, his plans, and whether or not he's actually gone through with them yet. And the plans, of course, were detailed in the previous episode Dragon Ball Super, which you can check down below in the description as well as in the annotation. And of course, once they got there, Zamasu was surprised to see them in that realm, wondering exactly what they were doing there. And first off, they started by saying that Goku had come there with them because he wanted to fight Zamasu one more time, and Zamasu, funny enough, said he was willing to do it, but instead of letting that go through, Beerus came up with an excuse so that they could leave, so that they could actually observe from afar what would happen between Zamasu and his master Gowasu. And so they flew out into space, and they observed from afar what was going on with Zamasu and Gowasu. And I have to note at this point that when they stopped, Goku did fly out into space. They were clearly in the middle of space where there's no oxygen, where there's none of that protective shield of any sort of atmosphere. They were not in the atmosphere of the Kaioshin realm or anything like that. So here's another little bit of evidence that Goku can breathe in space, just like Superman and just like all these other characters from these other universes. Either that or Toei simply doesn't care anymore about this, and they're just going to keep being inconsistent. But suck on that, haters. And it was at this point that all of them decided to stand out in space so that they could observe from afar using Whis' staff exactly what was going to happen with Zamasu and Gowasu. Because as Beerus and Whis explained, even though they could sense in Zamasu' spirit that he was going to kill his master, he definitely had that killing intention, they needed a little bit more evidence than simply being able to sense something, considering that Zamasu is going to become the Kaioshin of Universe 10 in the future, and you need a little bit more evidence before you decide to outright kill the god of creation of a universe. I mean, that would probably cause a gigantic scandal, and I don't think Zeno would be very happy, and we know he could just wipe them all out in an instant if he really does get annoyed. He already destroyed 6 of the universes that way. But it turned into a kind of Minority Report, future sight sort of episode, in which they were all observing everything that was happening, and just like they thought, Zamasu decided to go through with his plans to kill his master using that charged up key-bladed hand of his. And this was actually a funny way that they executed this scene, because the fact that initially when Zamasu was right about to kill Gowasu, he was right about to attack him and use that keyblade on his neck, but Gowasu started to choke on those rice balls that Whis had brought earlier and needed to quickly drink the tea, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm saved. I guess I have to be a lot more careful." And immediately after this, Zamasu goes through and kills him with his attack. And I did really also like the fact that during this whole point, even though Goku and the Kaioshin are freaking out, Beerus and Whis are just watching intently so that they can know and they can have the evidence so that they can actually go through with destroying this guy. And of course, they actually used Whis' time reversal, temporal do-over ability, so they made sure to actually see it go through, see the Kaioshin himself be killed, and then just turn it all back so that they could go back to the realm and prevent it from happening. And it was cool. They were like, now we have the absolute evidence, we saw everything happen, so let's make this happen now and stop this guy for good. So Whis used another kind of Deus Ex Machina power that he created out of nowhere, creating this kind of cat-looking oven mitt and slipping it onto Zamasu's hand with his super speed before he got the chance to kill Gowasu, stopping him in the act. And it was at this point that Goku's group showed up and explained to Gowasu what had happened, and explained to him that Zamasu was planning to kill him, take his time ring, go to the future, and do everything that they speculated about in the last episode. And then Zamasu, when he asked, "How exactly did you figure all this out just by seeing what I was trying to do?" And Goku came up to him and said, "Well, we've been to the future, we know what you're going to do, we saw it all happen." And Zamasu basically took this and said, "Okay, well, I guess we're using the time travel theory where essentially everything that happened in the future happened exactly the way it's already happening right now, so there's no way I can be defeated here. And he went to attack Goku, and at this point, probably the coolest part of this episode happened when Beerus stopped Zamasu's attack. And Beerus said, "Don't get cocky," put his hand right in Zamasu's face and said, "Hakai." Destroy. Now, I don't really know if this is some kind of special technique on Beerus's part, considering the fact that once he said destroy, Zamasu began filled with this light and was slowly ripped apart as if he was being broken down to the subatomic level itself, so it could be a special ability that only the God of Destruction has, kind of like when Beerus destroyed that egg in Battle of Gods, when he and Champa were fighting in the Universe 6 tournament arc, in which they were destroying all of the universe and Goku and Vegeta were jumping back in fear. I mean, it's entirely possible that perhaps Beerus does have these sort of abilities, and I think it's pretty awesome to actually give him that. So just like Whis with his time travel and with this other stuff he can do, even if Goku and Vegeta, say, get more powerful than Beerus, they could still be able to be destroyed by him due to this kind of godly ability, so it's certainly something that can help even the playing field in that regard. And one thing I do have to say about the scene that I really liked is that it seems like Sumitomo has given Beerus a new score, and it's pretty awesome. When Sumitomo first started out with this series, a lot of people were kind of questioning whether or not he was very good at what he was doing, but I've liked his music in this series from the beginning, and they've really introduced a lot of new songs and a lot of new scores during this arc, especially the next episode preview, Black's theme, this new Beerus theme. So many cool themes have been introduced and so many others cemented that it was certainly awesome to hear it in the scene as well. And after Beerus destroyed Zamasu, Goku and the group went back to Earth in Universe 7, and they were talking with Future Trunks and the rest of the people who were there, and they were discussing how they in fact destroyed him, and Beerus was saying now Black should no longer exist in the future and Trunks' timeline should be safe. And Trunks questioned this, saying, well, when I destroyed the androids and when the androids were destroyed in the present, nothing really changed for my future. But Beerus said apparently when it comes to gods, when a god destroys another god, the space-time continuum, I guess, fixes itself to where he's destroyed in every single continuity, so I don't really understand how that works, and apparently it's another time travel theory that Akira Toriyama is introducing in Dragon Ball, and especially this arc, which we've seen so many different modes of time travel in this arc thus far, but it's something I guess we're gonna have to go with, and essentially it ended on that note with Trunks saying, I really hope everything will be fine. So overall, a good amount of stuff really did happen in this episode, even though a lot of it was talking, the action was very substantive when it came to the plot, with Beerus destroying the present Zamasu and seeming to have put everything to a conclusion. However, it doesn't really necessarily seem like that's what's going to happen if we look at the next episode preview, but I will talk about that more in my predictions. Now, there are some other things I also didn't mention during the review that I did really like. There is a cool little subplot in this episode in which the current Trunks and the future Trunks kinda came to blows, and the kid Trunks went over to future Trunks and was saying, what, you lost one fight and now you're moping around? You're making my brand and my name look bad. And the future Trunks wasn't really having any of it and telling the kid Trunks to leave him alone, but the kid Trunks wasn't having any of it as he actually transformed into a Super Saiyan, flew at Trunks and punched him straight in the face, knocking him to the ground and saying, fight me, you really call yourself a real Saiyan? And right before Goku, Beerus, and Whis all arrived back at the planet, they had basically seemed to settle everything up, with Trunks still remaining in his base form, because realistically his base form should still be much stronger than even the Super Saiyan version of his kid form, but as we saw through this sort of sparring, it seemed like the future Trunks understood what the present Trunks was saying, and said that no matter who the opponent is, he will try and fight them, and he will try and defeat them, regardless of if he gets beaten or if they're far more powerful than he seems to be. And actually at this point, when Beerus and Whis did arrive and they smashed down on the planet with another kind of typical Whis landing recently, where he keeps dropping Beerus and Whis on their butts, the current kid Trunks was knocked back to the ground, but we did see Mai actually jump to his comfort and to his aid, so it's possible that maybe he is starting to sway her over in the current timeline version of her character. And maybe she is starting to lean a little bit more towards the kid Trunks as opposed to simply being obsessed with the future one, and so it's nice to see that they might be throwing the kid Trunks from this timeline a bone, although I wonder where the heck Goten is because he is Trunks' best friend, and it would be nice to see future Trunks interact with this kid and say, wait a second, who is this? Where'd he come from? Wow, I didn't even have this kid in my future. Goku didn't have a second son in my future. But I guess they don't really care about that, so who knows. I also really like the little scene we got in which we saw Black and Zamasu sitting in the future in this cabin in the woods of sorts, just kind of hanging out. It's kind of cool to see what the villains do in their off time, and I always really enjoy that. And we kind of saw them further talking about their motivations, kind of Black saying, oh, you know, very soon I will come close to killing Goku and putting his head on a pike or whatever, and Zamasu was saying, well, if you do that, you won't really have anyone to help you further improve, and he was saying, oh, well, why don't you just wish for an immortal body like I do, and Black was actually saying having an immortal body is not enough for him, and he was satisfied with the kind of power he has with the unlimited potential so that he can continue to grow for their plans, which Zamasu referred to as the Zero Mortals plan, which continues to be translated as humanity because people still don't seem to understand that he's not talking about humans, he's talking about mortals and lower mortals in general. But the point is that I really like this scene, and I really like the fact that we did get to see them in their downtime. We got to see a little bit more motivations, I guess a little bit more humanization. Just seeing them chill out is always pretty cool in my book. The only other thing I have to say in terms of a con was that sometimes during this episode the animation did seem a little bit wonky, but there was a lot of really awesome looking scenes, so I can't really complain too much about that. Overall, it was a good episode, exposition heavy, but still really good nonetheless. And all the action that happened in this episode during the fight between present and future Trunks, as well as the little skirmish that Beerus and Zamasu had, in which he wiped out the present version of Zamasu, was all substantive and it all mattered within the course of the plot, so I definitely can't say anything bad about that either. So overall, I thought this was a really good episode, and it's making me look forward to what's going to happen next week's episode because of the fact that it seems like it's really up in the air what's going to happen next, and from that next episode preview, it seems like it's really going to start contradicting some of the things that Beerus said in this episode. But I'll leave that for my predictions video. So this has been another edition of Dragon Ball Super Reviews in which I was reviewing episode 59. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments section. Did you like this episode? Did you dislike it? And basically, how would you rate it on a scale, I guess, of 1 to 10, or whatever scale you like to use? Let me know down below. Don't forget to like this video, and of course, share it with your friends so we can make more like this in the future, and as I always say, stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future. Zamasu, we coming for you, Ningen!